I do want to talk about what's coming next. So I'm just going to throw that to you and say, do you see a commitment in July following Caleb Williams, and which side of the ball? If you do.
When you talk about what's coming next, so you talk about the 5 stars, overdevelop those guys. That's going to be the big question, right? Is a 5-star going to join the boat? Now, I wouldn't say that I'm expecting a 5-star type to commit. I do think, though, that because of the Caleb Williams commitment, guys like Emeka Egbuka, Tristan Lee, Kamar Wheaton are very much a little bit more realistic. Now, in terms of some of the guys that could pull the trigger here in the next month or so, I'm expecting some defensive backs to potentially commit in that span of time that I mentioned. I think that the Caleb Williams commitment here is important to note because a lot of those defensive backs that Oklahoma is targeting right now are out in the DMV. I mean, Harmon, Damon David, who, by the way, Damon David, I'm not a huddle guy. I like to in-person evaluate players, but my goodness, go put on Damon David's huddle tape. That dude is next level good in terms of that film, and OU has a very real chance to lock that guy up. I think they lead for him over Michigan. I think Damon Harmon is on the verge. I think there's a couple of other guys in Texas that could pull the trigger defensively. I think the real good news when you're talking about what could be next, yes, Oklahoma gets the 5-star quarterback. They get that corner in Latrell McCutcheon. But in my opinion, I think you're going to really see some major takes, whether it be the 4-star guys or even the 3-star guys, on the defensive side of the ball specifically. I think that's kind of where those dominoes may fall next. Exact names I don't want to give, but I can kind of give you that picture right now as I mentioned some of those defensive backs I'm impressed with. So I really do believe that Oklahoma is about to add some very good names into the class. While they may not be, again, some of those high-profile dudes that you want like Kamar or Tristan or Egbuka, I mean, don't get me wrong, like Damon David, Damon Harmon, if they get Burris or Gilliam, I mean, those dudes can ball. And I firmly believe that if they do end up committing here very shortly, it's because of that commitment of Caleb Williams in this aftermath.
So knowing that that's on the docket, right, and seeing that both Roy Manning and Lincoln Riley have done a pretty good job of trying to keep fans engaged about what's coming and what's coming next, I wonder what is it that they're actually trying to build toward before a season starts, and the urgency, because, and throw this in here, Tony Grimes shocks us all by reclassifying and is going to finish his credits in time to enroll at North Carolina in August. Now, he's a little bit more precocious in coming out of Princess, and he's not even going to play with the idea of Virginia not playing fall football. And that's been positive for a couple of months now. Same thing with Louisiana. They are playing with the idea of not having football in the fall, and you have kids who are on a deadline. Many of them want to early enroll. That was always the plan. They want to get to college just as soon as they possibly can so they can get to the NFL just as soon as they possibly can. And Grimes being the number one player at cornerback in this class and a top 10 recruit, reclassifying speaks volumes. So knowing that that's there, what do you think the prospects are of Oklahoma trying to recruit just a little bit more into the future as opposed to into the present, because nobody knows anything about this 2021 class? I mean, evaluations are going to, we're all going to look so good or so bad, and nobody's going to give us any kind of break because we didn't get to do in-person evaluations. Like, I mean, at this point, we're going on, 4 months? And we're looking at, 6, possibly? I mean, we're talking about some FBU stuff. There was Elite 11, but there weren't any camps. Not really. There were no team camps. There was no elite camps. What do you think the play is here for Oklahoma, but also just around the country? Is the play to put them all in the boat like Tennessee, or is the play to try to look to 2022?
I think the play is really to kind of anticipate what you're going to do in the 2022 class, and then do as best as you can to identify the top-tier talent on your board and get them committed as quickly as possible. Now, that kind of plays into what teams like Tennessee or maybe even North Carolina are doing. I mean, North Carolina is playing into its future by taking care of the present. And I quickly explained that by saying they said, look, we don't want to mess with the flurry of potential decommitments coming in the future. So if we are able to get Grimes on campus now, that sets us up for probably the next 3 years of at least getting him into our program. In my opinion, you're going to have to make a lot of business decisions this cycle, because I think we're going to look back on this specific recruiting class and just ask what might have been. I mean, there are going to be a ton of guys that get overlooked, to be quite honest with you, because we just don't have those in-person evaluation opportunities right now. And once you really start running up to that deadline here in December or into the final signing day out in, February, I mean, there's going to be a massive flurry of just jumbling recruiting mess that teams are going to have to sort through. And I firmly believe if I were in their position, I would just say, all right, stop. This thing is kind of a lost cause. Let's just make sure we are taking care of positions of need and then looking towards that 2022 class, because, number one, I'll say this. The 2022 class, my goodness, it is loaded with talent. It is some of the best talent I've seen in a while. And then number two, this 2021 class, I'm still looking at guys thinking, okay, but can he really play ball? And, I mean, we'd have those questions answered by now if we had some of these opportunities, but we just don't. And I think that college football programs are going to kind of be in the same boat. So, again, I think right now, especially when you're Oklahoma or some of these bigger name programs like Ohio State or Tennessee or what have you, you really have to figure out, okay, what can we just take care of in the now that we're comfortable with, and then just reset ourselves into maybe a stronger talent pool in 2022. That's just what I would do. I don't know what you would do, RJ, but knowing what I know and knowing what we've been up against, it really would be more convenient for me if I just focused on what is ahead of time.
Well, I actually want to take it there because we're actually running through my questions. The question I have for you is, what does Oklahoma look like in relation to the number one quarterback in the 2022 class, Quinn Ewers, now that we know that Caleb Williams is committed? Because I think you can make an argument that if Oklahoma swung and missed on Williams, they're in the driver's seat for Ewers, but we made that argument with Williams, and it turns out we were right. So, knowing that dude is being heavily pursued by Texas, Ohio State, Auburn, and Oklahoma, how do you assess the race in July when nobody gets to play football and about a year before he probably has to make a decision?
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating in terms of the Quinn Ewers pursuit. I know that anyone who has listened or followed some of my work, everybody knows I'm very high on the guy.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the 2022 class update is coming soon. I'm sure it'll be out by the time this podcast goes up. And Quinn Ewers is in a spot that I firmly believe he deserves. And he reached that positioning in a season. Now, where that eventually ends up in terms of Oklahoma standing, I really don't think that we can definitively say, okay, Oklahoma still leads or Oklahoma is still in that top 2 or 3. Because the Quinn Ewers situation, especially with what's happening in 2021, with some of the more surefire quarterbacks already being taken, there are a lot of programs that are going to come after this guy with everything they've got, because they know they're going to have a lot more time to take a look at him. They're going to have a lot more time to evaluate and see the fit. And to be quite honest, I mean, this guy has a lot of football ahead of him. I mean, he just finished up his sophomore year as a starter of South Lake Carroll. So for Oklahoma and Quinn Ewers specifically, I'm not comfortable to sit here and tell you that Oklahoma's number one still. I think, okay, if you go on to 24/7 Sports, if you're a VIP member, you'll see some really good pieces that guys like Steve Wiltfong or Mike Roche have put out about how Quinn Ewers is handling things in the aftermath of Caleb Williams' commitment. I'm sure I'll have something here very soon because I'm talking with people down in Texas about the aftermath. But, I mean, Quinn Ewers is a guy, if I'm Oklahoma and I know that the 2021 class may already kind of be filling up due to not only my player evaluations but scholarship limits, I mean, I would be doing anything I can to put resources into the recruitment of Quinn Ewers. So We'll see. I don't think that this Caleb Williams thing directly impacts Quinn, to be quite honest with you, because I know that the camp and his family firmly believes that kid can accomplish anything in just one football season, and I wholeheartedly agree with them. But I'm also someone who firmly believes that if Quinn Ewers has the opportunity to play as much football as possible, he should take that opportunity. So Oklahoma is very much in the race. I still believe that they're towards the top, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if they end up getting his commitment. The thing is, because he's going to have a lot more time to be evaluated, there are going to be a lot of other programs vying for his eventual commitment, and it's going to be a lot more difficult to eventually get that guy in the boat than maybe it was for Caleb Williams.
I'd appreciate that, and I also put it into these terms. How many quarterbacks do you have in the room? How many quarterbacks do you have on the depth chart that you think are good? And how often do you take 2 quarterbacks in a class? Like, that would be my major knock against the likes of an Auburn or an Ohio State or even a Texas, right? Oklahoma has proven to be more unique in this manner in that Riley just wants one. He doesn't want 2. He wants one. He wants one in every cycle. And you take a quarterback in every cycle. But what we've seen is Texas, LSU, Ohio State. They're all hedge. I mean, you got Jack Miller and C.J. Stroud at Ohio State. You've had Hudson Card and Jaquindon Jackson at Texas. You know, LSU took T.J. Finley and Max Johnson. Oklahoma doesn't do that. So if you are thinking that you want to get cover for one of these guys, then cool, that's great. But that probably hurts you down the road with the next group of kids. That's how I view it, at least. Do you think that's a little bit too cynical?
No, not at all. I mean, I think you bring up a very good point in that a lot of Quinn Ewers' other collegiate destinations are bringing in 2 guys at the signal caller position. And to further it, I mean, if I'm going to be really honest with you, I mean, I've had a chance to see Quinn play, and I know what Southlake does offensively. And I still have firmly believed that Oklahoma is probably his best fit in terms of running an offensive system, because what they do at Southlake is very similar to what he would probably have to handle as the quarterback of Oklahoma. Now, again, I've written about it. If Quinn Ewers goes to Oklahoma as the one guy in the class of 2022, I firmly believe that the moment he gets to step foot on the field as a starter for the Crimson and Cream, he's going to go off. I mean, this guy is going to be a future first-round NFL draft pick. I mean, I think Charles Power came out with an article today. I mean, he believes that Quinn Ewers is the best junior quarterback prospect since Trevor Lawrence. So that kind of goes to show you what he can do potentially once he reaches the next level. The biggest thing is just finding that fit. I mean, if Quinn knows that, okay, either I'm looking at OU as that destination, and they already have Caleb Williams or Spencer Rattler on campus, or I'm looking at some of those other programs you mentioned, like Ohio State, Texas, teams that are taking a bunch of other quarterbacks while they may not be on his level. There are other guys in that room. I think Quinn is really just going to have to figure out, okay, what is the best opportunity for me to showcase my skills in a very short amount of time? And once he determines that, I'm not going to object to his eventual destination. I think we're going to learn a lot about Texas specifically, because I think with a new offensive coordinator in, they're going to have to kind of prove what they can provide. And I think, honestly, Texas is a really likely destination for him. I think Ohio State is another very realistic opportunity to go and just dominate in 1 year's time. I mean, Ryan Day, a lot of people know, I very much respect what Ryan Day does systematically on offense. So, again, I think that Quinn Ewers is kind of seeing the situation that you're talking about. A lot of the teams on his top list are taking either a bunch of guys or they're taking guys that are extreme high caliber, and he's going to have to go into some sort of situation and know that he may not have the most time on the field, but, I mean, the guy can accomplish anything imaginable in just a few short games. So that's kind of a hurdle that he has to jump, and it's going to be really fun to follow what he eventually does, because now that Caleb Williams is committed, I mean, I see no reason why all focus shouldn't be on this guy. So, again, it's a long time until he makes his decision, but knowing these are the factors that go into it, I think this is going to be a very fun storyline to continue to build until he eventually makes that signing official on signing day.
I think that's a good place to leave it, man. That's very good. I mean, of course it's very good. We haven't done this in like 2 weeks. That's Colin Kennedy. Follow him on Twitter at @ckennedy247, at @ckennedy247 on the Twitters. I have deleted my Twitter account. Please subscribe, not to this, just to this podcast, but to OUinsider.com, where the VIP board stays popping with Brandon Drum dropping drum beats like every day. Colin stays up on whose list is doing what, whose offers are really hot, and keeps you up to date on all things related to not just Oklahoma and Oklahoma recruiting, but also we got team news now. We have, 0 positive COVID tests, which I think is outstanding.
Yeah.
So at the very least, in the beginning, when there are no other students on campus, Oklahoma gets to show once again why it's really good at this thing called football. All right, that is going to do it for us. We'll see you guys next time. Deuces.